Welcome to the conclusion of Volume 1 of our summary study of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Now, we left off where Krishna and all his devotees in Dwarka were in this deep state of grief. They were all crying. Krishna was brought to this state of grief by his devotees. Now, we know Narada Muni is on his quest to see who's the greatest recipient of Lord Krishna's mercy. And he's already come to that conclusion here towards the end. And we see that he's actually instigated this situation that we're reading about and we're talking about. And we see that Balaram, Uddhava, Rohini, who all visited Vrindavan and seen on the first-hand basis the condition of the residents of Vrindavan and the amount of separation they are feeling for Krishna. And so this discussion came about. They were kind of bringing out the fact that, Krishna needs to go back there. And then they were talking about Rohini, like, well, he never even thinks of them anymore. But then Rukmini and Satyabhama counter that and say, no, he thinks about them at night, but he daydreams about them during the day. Every one of his devotees, based on their relationship, are drawing this emotion out. They're stimulating Krishna. Even the wicked Padmavati, who's creating arguments and saying unkind things about the Vrajavasis, embellishing this and bringing this mood out. So now this mood is so intensified that Brahma and Brahmaloka is seeing some omens and trying to understand what's going on. So he personally goes for himself to try to find out what's going on. And he comes to Dwarka, and this is the scene that he sees. And so when he sees Krishna, he sees as a spiritual master, and in this state of grief, he starts getting emotional himself. He starts crying, but then quickly composes himself. Everybody that came upon this situation was very emotional. So Brahma comes up with this idea that there's this Nava Vrindavan very close, and that he understands that we can just bring Krishna to that Nava Vrindavan, and that should mitigate the situation. So he tells all the residents of Dwarka, everyone should go back home. Garuda comes, and he tells Garuda that you should take Krishna, Balaram, and Rohini only to this Nava Vrindavan. Was created by Vishwakarma. And this Nava Vrindavan is full of these images of the Vrajavasis, Ananda and Yasoda, the cowherd boys, all the gopis, the cows, and Rani is there, but they're all dolls, they're all statues. So they can't speak, but they're so realistic. They look just like their counterparts. He tells Garuda, you take them there. Everybody else, he tells them to go home, but he allows Devaki, Rohini, Rukmini, Satyabhama, and some of the queens, even Padmavati, that they can watch from a distance. And then Narada Muni, now he's thinking, well, I've created this huge disturbance, apprehensive a little bit. And then he goes up in the sky and positions himself in a semi-hidden place to watch what happens. And then Garuda, after he takes them there, he also positions himself in the sky. And he also provides shade with his wings for Krishna if necessary. Balaram, He dresses Krishna. They place him on a bed. Balaram at this time is coming back to some sense of normality. And so to assist in this pastime, he dresses Krishna as a cowherd boy. He gives him his flute. He tucks it into his waist. He gives him a bullhorn, a stick. He puts a peacock feather headdress on Krishna. And he garlands him with garlands from forest flowers. And then he starts to bring Krishna, waking him up and try to bring him out of his current state of mind. He's like, Krishna has fainted in his ecstasy of thinking about these gopis. So now Balaram is reviving him. Around him, they have Nanda and Yasoda and some of the gopis. Krishna is waking up and he's seeing Yasoda. You should have seen this dream I just had, that I was fighting demons and warriors. And now that it's amazing, this dream I had. But Yasoda is not responding because she's just an image, a doll. But Rohini's there, so to encourage this situation along, she says, you slept in this morning, and now all the cows, they've already left to go out in the forest. You should hurry up and go. I'll fix some lunch, and I will bring it to you. She encourages Krishna to go on his way. When Krishna, he leaves with Balaram. But one funny thing that happens, as Krishna's walking, he leaves, like when he goes to see Radharani, we have his queens who are observing all this from a distance. And now they're seeing this Krishna dressed as the cowherd boy, like they've never seen him before. And this is starting to make them experience this prema that they never experienced before, and the love. And so what happens is, like Padmavati and Satyabhama, they kind of just take off after Krishna. They want to embrace him. But then they're captured by Kalindi and Uddhava, and they're brought back. And this is Padmavati, who is having these very mean things about the Vrajavasis. Now she's experiencing this love of prema for Krishna in a completely different mood. And eventually he comes across Radharani. And he sees Radharani there, and he says hello to Radharani, and he starts talking to her, but she's not responding. And so he says, we will meet later in our secret place. And he continues on his journey. And he hears the sound of water, and he thinks what he sees is the Yamuna, but he's coming to the ocean. And all the cows are there. And he's herding these cows, and he's thinking he's coming to the Yamuna. He realizes at one point he hears the waves crashing, and then in a distance he sees Dwarka. And he starts to kind of, wonder, well, what's going on? Where am I? Who am I? What's going on here? So these questions. So then Balaram, he starts to console him. Krishna sees the ocean. He's coming out of this mood of the Vrajavasis. And Balaram tells him, explain to him what's going on. He tells him this was Brahma's plan, but he brings him back to his normal consciousness as this prince who has come here to help the demigods, to annihilate the miscreants, and to establish religious principles. So he's reminding Krishna of these things. At this stage, Garuda comes, and he takes Krishna and Balaram back to Dwarka, to the palace. And actually, kind of unseen, he takes them back. And then Uddhava brings the queens also back to Dwarka. Satyabhama, in her state of jealousy, she leaves that assembly and goes to her room. Krishna comes back and he's wondering where she is. And so there you have these ladies that respond, and after seeing this condition, they respond to Krishna And they glorify the gopis in Vraja. They say, "It is befitting, therefore, that Krishna loves them more than us. For we are obsessed with our religious duties, our children, grandchildren, homes, household affairs, and so on." Krishna doesn't see Satyabhama as inquiring where she's at, and find out that she's gone to her chambers, and is very disturbed. And angrily he says, "Bring Satyabhama back here immediately." So the maidservants, they go tell Satyabhama about what Krishna just said. So she cleans herself up, makes herself presentable, and she comes. And she's a little scared this time, and she's hiding behind a pillar. So Krishna says to her, "O weak-minded Sadrajiti, see, you grew angry when Rukmini got the Parijata flower, and from your jealousy. And now we see that your jealousy is even more intensified, O silly woman. Don't you know that I am ruled by these Vrajavasis?" Krishna is starting to express to all of them his heart, the nature of his heart. He says that if these Vrajavasis just see a patch of darkness resembling my body, they embrace it and kiss it, thinking that it's me. More, he is revealing the relationship that he has with the residents of Vrindavan, and also their love that they have for him. He says to all this queens, he says, "When I left and came to Mathura, at first I had no desire to get married. But then this Brahmin, he brought me this letter from Rukmini, who expressed her desire to marry me and was in a distressful situation, and it said that she would leave her body, quit her body, if Krishna didn't come and save her. And therefore, when I married her, even this, in a sense, reminded me of the residents of Vrindavan. And therefore, I married the 16,000 wives." And in this way, he kind of explaining his current situation with them. He describes his happiness in Vrindavan. He said it's difficult in this condition to break the jealousy that y'all have of these residents of Vrindavan. We see the situation was created for them to understand firsthand his relationship and why he was so attached to the residents of Vrindavan. Now, Uddhava starts to recognize that before Krishna starts going back into this mood of separation that he was just in, tries to stop Krishna and bring him and keep him in this normal state he's in. And he said, and he motions to the queens to do something. At the same time, Rukmini and Devaki to bring something for Krishna. So then all the queens, they come and they're all crying and they're all bowing down at Krishna's feet and they're all touching his feet. And their mood is changing. Devaki and Rohini, they bring something for Krishna to eat. Uddhava says to Krishna that there's Narada over there. He's here. Narada's over there by the door. Uddhava brings Krishna's attention to Narada. Krishna says to Narada, "O Narada, my dearest friend, you are always eager to please me. You have now done me a great favor." We see that this quest of Narada Muni to find out who's the greatest recipient of Lord Krishna's mercy is here his service to Krishna. And without him really understanding it, he sees now that how it's helped Krishna. And then Krishna goes on to say, to describe his mood to Narada Muni. He says, "It is true that when one is parted from those one loves. Prema makes one suffer within. So Krishna here is given an explanation of this mood of separation. The burning pain creates a remorse that further deepens into irrepressible sorrow. Thus, when at first seems wretched, this sorrow always transforms at last into an abundance of pleasure, which is praised as greater than the happiness of meeting. So here Krishna is explaining that at one state of this mood of separation, this whole mood of sorrow turns into a mood of great pleasure, greater than actually meeting, which is most indescribable and which is pleasing to the mind. Only a person greedy for prema can understand this. He goes on to say, one may want to feel that separation again and may indeed feel distressed if one cannot. Thus, a person who can remind one of a beloved not present is considered the most sincere and helpful friend. So he's thanking Narada Muni for what he did because of his actions. This discourse with all the queens took place, and because of that discourse, Krishna was brought into this mood of loving sentiment of the Vrajavasis. And so therefore everything that's happened now in this 7th chapter took place. He says, please understand, when somehow made mindful of those one loves, one has given back one's life. Forgetting those more dear than one's own breath is more painful than dying. So Krishna is very thankful to Narada Muni. Now he wants to give Narada Muni some benediction for what he has done. So he says, today you have favored me greatly, and therefore I'm delighted with you. Please choose whatever benediction you would like. So Narada Muni responded to this, starts chanting Jai, Jai, jumping up and down in ecstasy and singing. And then he asked Krishna, Sri Krishna Chandra, please grant that no one will ever feel he has enough of your mercy, your devotional service, or pure love for you, the reservoir of ecstasy. Krishna responds, he says, my mercy, my bhakti, and prema already have all this nature. That should be simply obvious. So now Narada Muni, his first benediction was for a benediction for all the living entities in society, those who take up the path of bhakti yoga. That was his first benediction. But Krishna says that's already there. So now Narada Muni, at this point, is realizing that I understand practically why. Who is the greatest recipient of your mercies? The total realization has come to pass for Narada Muni. So then he asked for another benediction. Narada Muni says, O swan, glide into the lakes of the Vrajavasis' love. I wish that I may wander everywhere, always chanting, drinking the nectar of your names. As I wander, behaving like a madman, may I distribute joy to everyone in all the worlds. Then he asked for another benediction. This is another benediction he also for the living entities and the Vaishnavas. He says, whether by speaking, thinking, hearing, or physical contact, if a person in this world comes in touch even once with these pastimes of yours and is convinced of their importance, may he be endowed eternally with the power to worship your feet in pure love. So Krishna extended his divine lotus hand and said to Narada, so be it. So now Narada Muni, he joins Krishna for lunch, and then they have their meal, and then Narada Muni leaves and he goes back Prayag to bestow mercy upon all those sages who are still there in their assembly. After the sages, they heard the whole story that Narada's quest. They themselves at once gave up all interest in everything and engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Now, in closing here, Pariksit Maharaj, speaking to Uttara, says to his mother, he says that, Uttara, just worship Madan, Gopal, in the mood of the gopis. He says that if you follow my advice and with prema take shelter of the gopis and their master, Lord Krishna, then, O mother, I promise that by Krishna's mercy, you will be able to understand something of the gopis' greatness. Pariksit Maharaj, it is all his conviction, implores his mother that to engage in service in this way. So this ends the volume 1 of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta, which is the story of Narada Muni's quest to see who's the greatest recipient of Lord Krishna's mercy. So now we'll go to volume 2, and that story is Gopikumar's story, where it's his successful story and how he attained Prem. That story is told in 2 volumes, and we will pick up there next. So thank you very much. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Yeah.